8 slides.
Take over.
Can everyone see my extremely Spartan slide deck? Once and for all, just learn the word.
Do you want me to follow the questions while Tim presents?
Sure. So
Or
we
comments?
will have open floor Q&A after the presentation. I've got 90 minutes, but Tim and Jen only have 60. So welcome to Data Tribe Coffee Hour, your friendly analytics virtual neighbors. Safe harbor. I'm sure we've all seen this slide before. Please make purchasing decisions based on currently available technologies. I bet you Tim's got a slide for this one too. Participation tips. When we do get to open floor Q&A, if you do want to share your screen, just make sure it's not going to be production data. If you got a question during the presentation, please raise your hand in the chat or post the question in the chat. Otherwise, please try to stay on mute. We'll have open floor at the end, and as always, some handy dandy links. And that's really all I've got. So Tim, take it away.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pete. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. Good to see you, everyone. My name is Tim Bezold. I'm a product manager for Einstein Analytics in the data platform there, responsible for running your data flows and the data prep product. And that's what this topic is about today. We've invested quite a bit of time in the past to upgrade our underlying runtime platform. And now we've been working for pretty much a year on a new user experience as well that I would like to show you today and kind of prepare you for what's coming in the summer release that is imminent as for the sandbox rollout. Tomorrow we're starting to upgrade our sandboxes with the summer release. So very, very exciting. I'm curious, I'm assuming everyone is pretty familiar with data flows, right? And any specific expectations from this session before I jump in?
Show us some cool stuff.
Anyone? So I'm not hearing any requests for starting from the scratch. I can jump in a deep end.
Tim, after your session, if there are people who don't know where data flow is or what it is, Pete and I can take over.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, let me see if I can share my screen. Hopefully it works. I'd like to open system preferences. Yes, you are allowed. Ring Central will need to be able to record the contents later. So
you might have to drop out and then drop back in.
Yeah, I'm afraid that's kind of what I might have to do.
This is like real life.
That actually happened like last week with Bezold.
As well,
he had to drop and rejoin. Einstein Analytics movie.
I'll be right back. Sorry.
Speaking of which, I have an hour and 37 minutes of raw footage that has been in the process of getting edited for Einstein Analytics Mobile, the movie.
What is your next video topic, Pete?
Einstein Analytics Mobile, the movie. Everything you need to know about mobile, its history, how it works, feature parity, the awesome stuff you can do with Pages, the connected app that allows you to have extremely granular security controls, as well as Spring 20 updates, and then a big long session of Q&A.
Nice.
We'll have to have a session on that.
Yep.
I've also got a number of other things in the works, but I'm kind of lazy, and there's a kiddo around now, so it takes up a lot of my time.
For everybody who's on here, how many days now until the summer release? We're like 2 weeks away, right? 3 weeks
Well,
away?
it's delayed a full month, so it's hitting. Normally it would be hitting in early June, but it's hitting sandboxes now, and it's going to hit prod in about 5, 6 weeks.
I keep looking for everything Tim shows us, and it's not even in the sandboxes yet.
Yep, gotta rock
I
that
know.
GSO.
Tomorrow, so
Hi. He made it. Yay.
Yeah,
we can see your screen.
I'm back. Perfect.
All
All
right.
right. Thanks for your patience. Let's start this again. So we are going to talk about what's next for Einstein Analytics in the summer release. And yes, Pete, you're right. I do have a forward-looking statement. So please make your purchasing decisions based on the software that's available today, and possibly also tomorrow once we're in sandboxes. Just a quick recap. The number of rows that are available to you out of the box keeps growing. So we have, with Einstein Analytics Plus licenses, now 10 billion rows available for each org, parallel data flow concurrency. And what's new in the summer release is 15-minute scheduling for all EA Plus customers. For the data preps release specifically, it's a big. So we have the next gen data prep product that we're launching as an open beta in the summer 20 release. And I mentioned earlier, we have a new underlying platform that supports our recipe joins and aggregations that are currently not available in data flows, but they are already available on recipes. And those recipes are running on this next gen distributed system that is an open source Spark platform behind the scenes that we're leveraging to also introduce ML functions. And it's really accelerating our pace of innovation because we can take these out of the box libraries and stick them into the prep. So while we've spent a lot of engineering time in developing a new user experience to accommodate for the challenges that we have with Dataflow Editor, where you sometimes have to drop to JSON, where you sometimes really need to learn SACL to get things done. We spend all of this, we're making sure that the user experience is easy and fast to learn. And at the same time, we're set up for the future to quickly introduce new exciting functions. For example, our machine learning things that we're introducing clustering. We're working on clustering right now so that you can do segmentation analysis, for example, or some of the other data flow parity functions that will come in soon. But let's jump into a demo first, if that is okay. So this is not, is this the right org? It seems, yeah, it is. I'm just confused because it says NA45 up there, but we do have the summer release in this one. And what I've done in this org is I've went to analytics settings and I've enabled the next generation data prep tool. And it's relatively safe to do so because you can continue to open up your recipes in the old recipe editor. And you, so every recipe that was created in the legacy editor, it continues to open in this editor. What we now also made available in the summer release is the ability to upgrade these legacy recipes into a new user experience, into the next generation platform. And we're still kind of going through the details of this upgrade, but so you may see, we can try it out. You may see a couple of things we need to polish up, but all in all, I have a data set here with Netflix movie titles, as we may have all been gorging on in this pandemic times. I'm just catching up really with a lot of these titles. But essentially this very simple recipe, we're just bringing in a external data set that allows us to look up ratings for each show. in this data set. So I have a Netflix title data set, and then I'm just doing an augment operation, a lookup operation here to bring in ratings. So that's my recipe. And what I can do is I can either edit this in data prep, or I can edit it in the next generation data prep tooling. So this is kind of the quick start to editing, upgrading a legacy recipe. So behind the scenes, we're taking the recipe definition, we're converting it to the next gen data prep definition, and we're creating this new graph that is similar to a data flow editor graph. And this is one of the bugs that I mentioned earlier. The layout isn't great right now. We're improving on that auto layout. By the way, when you rearrange graphs, we save it and we remember the graph location as well. So you not only have cool different icons and colors to kind of tell which type of node it is, to pick the different node types out, but we also give you the node location that is saved alongside with the definition. So you can see a preview of the records here. And then we have our join node that is doing the lookup operation. So that's exactly what we've seen earlier in the legacy data set that we've converted over. We have the show ID join key that we're using. Something that wasn't really possible in the old data prep editor was, if I have this lookup data set, I can now inject a node before I do the join, for example. So I can prep my data from both sides before the join, and I can inject these different nodes. So currently we offer functionality parity in the summer release to the recipe definition. So we have the aggregation in here. We have the ability to filter rows out before they enter the join. For example, I can filter out records. Oh, this is duration, date added. Interesting. So actually, this is a good data prep use case. I may need a transform node that to convert that into a proper date. But I can filter out, for example, TV shows in this case, and I can just prep my movies. Apply this filter.
On the call like this feels like a kid on Christmas.
Yeah, and we've also, so with Jen, with some of the complex data flows that you're building for Palo Alto Networks, we kept that in mind, and we thought about this transform node, which is kind of a bit like a Swiss Army knife in your data flow or in your data prep recipe flow, because you have a lot of functionality embedded here, and all of the prep work that we're doing is saved as steps within this transform node. So we don't create like node after node after node. We're collapsing all of the complexity into the transform node. And so I can do a couple of string transformations, and you might have noticed this transformation toolbar here on the top. So I just created a new field here that's completely uppercase. This is currently a dimension because I'm using it as a join key, but I can also convert it to a visual measure.
You couldn't have done it any better, because anybody want to work with the words or you want to work with the pictures, it's all in one place for everybody, all learning types. It's great.
Yeah, and so we're hoping with the graph on top, it's similar to Dataflow Editor, and you can have a one glance, you understand how your data is flowing. Currently, my developers have done an awesome hackathon project where they've also given you in the columns tab, they've given you the ability to highlight a field. So I've just created a new field here, by the way, by converting this, this ID field to a measure, and I can choose what I want to do with the original field here as well. So I can keep the original, create a new field, or I can replace the original column with the new values. But back to your comment, Jen, I think the cool part here with the preview is, I get the instantaneous feedback of what's happening with my data, and I'm also getting powerful functions like a freeform formula node that I can apply to multiple fields at the same time. But actually, I was talking about the hackathon, and in this formula field, so what they've done, and this is not in any production code yet, but they've given you the ability to highlight a field and then see the field lineage upon request, where we're highlighting the graph and see where the field, if the field came from this input source or from that. So you can really tell by inspecting the graph, one glance, where's the data coming from. So with that combination of preview and the graph is hopefully making things a little bit more clear. By the way, I love the fact that you're jumping in with questions or comments. Is there Pete, do you want me to cover some questions as we go, or should we have a little Q&A session?
Nothing's come through in the chat, but I did have a couple of comments. First, I wanted to say, where has this been all my life? So many quality of life enhancements,
Yes.
so much nice stuff. To Jen's earlier point, I feel like a kid on Christmas morning. I actually feel like a kid on Thanksgiving morning who gets to see a video of himself opening presents on Christmas, but still can't do it for 2 months.
That's a nice analogy.
Can't play with it, yeah. They're coming back under the Christmas tree.
But there are so many features here that, my clients have been waiting for, and really awesome that they're going to be able to deliver on it.
So you're saying we can preview this before, like we don't have to run it to find out we made a mistake at some point anywhere in here when we have a transform, we can see if it's going to work there? Because that's magical.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think that's a huge productivity boost. Hopefully,
I just had the same problem running a regular data flow where my data flow crashed because there was no value to convert a dim to a dimension to a measure.
2 hours later, 3 hours later,
Yes.
you realize there was one little mistake you made.
Well, actually, there was a legacy, before we had the cast functionality, there was a legacy transformation for dim to me that was added in summer 16.
Mm-hmm.
Cast is so old school. Oh my gosh.
Well, the reason I know this is because that was like right when I started answering questions on the community. And the question came in, well, how do I convert a measure to a dimension? And I'm like, oh, I'm sure you can just use a compute expression to do that. And Chalks was like, no, sorry, buddy, you actually can't. And classic Pete stubbornness, I'm like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to figure this out. So the use case is admin's gone wild, decide it's a good idea to store a zip code as a number, but we need to be able to group by zip code, because who wants to do math on zip codes? That doesn't make any sense at all. So what I did was I used a combination of truncation and subtraction to identify the number in each column. We basically say if it's 14150, then we do truncate to -4. That gives us 10000. And so we then subtract and then divide, and we can figure out what's in every single column. And then we just do case statements. So you need a 10-way case statement for each digit, and then that's how you could actually convert it. So to convert, your upper limit would be to convert an 18-digit number, regardless of decimal place, including absolute value. It took something like 33 three.
Uphill both ways in the
30
snow, careful,
30
with no shoes.
It was 37 computed fields just to get the positions, and then you had to reassemble the whole thing.
You know, Pete, that brings up a good, Mark has a comment here in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
So assuming we can do all this, what does that mean for performance? That's a Tim question.
Yeah.
Put you in the hot seat.
So basically, performance depends on the underlying platform. And as I mentioned, we are making a transition for data flows to a new platform. So kind of before, the performance for this next generation data prep will be identical to the performance of recipes that you currently are using in your system that use joins and aggregates, for example. So so basically, because it's a new platform, the ability to run large volumes will be faster. So we're decreasing the runtime of data. You know, when you implement the work in this data prep recipe on the new platform and then run it. Because we are on this distributed platform, we can process data in parallel, therefore speeding up like high volume jobs. And I want to talk more about our future roadmap when it comes to data flow upgrades into this platform as well, into this tool. So currently that's not possible, but we're working on it. You just saw the upgrade from recipe to this next generation. So again, this is forward-looking statement, but we are rolling this out as GA in the winter release. So all recipes will open up in this editor, starting with the winter release. And the upgrade that you just saw is for the summer release. It's optional, so you can give it a try. And we're not deleting your old recipe. We're not removing the schedule. We keep everything as is, so you can pretty much try out the new editor in this beta release. But I have a slide to illustrate that.
One thing I'm excited about, Tim, is like, for example, at the moment we're building out some stuff for UNICEF and training their internal team who are used to Tableau and I think Power BI, and they've really struggled coming to grips with the existing data flow editor. Having this visual interface is really going to improve the learning curve for them. So that's exciting for us as we hand over to our clients. I love it.
Tim has a slide somewhere, don't you? We saw it on the London Data Tribe where Tableau fits into all this later on.
Yep.
Yep. Talking of slides, yeah, let me maybe jump back then. Exactly, safe harbor, and kind of finish up the talk track on we're half an hour in. Finish the talk track on how this is being rolled out. This is our rollout plan for the next generation. So currently we're in the summer release. When we have this open beta, I mean, anyone can turn it on and try it out. With the winter release, this is turned on by default for all orgs, and all recipes will open up in this new experience. And we're making the necessary precautions right now where we are employing a mechanism that we call dark launching, meaning that behind the scenes, we take your recipe definitions, we convert them to the next generation, we run them behind the scenes, and then we're comparing a checksum to make sure the results are absolutely identical between the two definitions. It's not the platform that's changing, it's the definitions that are changing. So it's just a metadata change really that we're doing, but we're still being very careful. There's some other stuff that's coming in. There's exciting export connector capabilities coming in, and that is only implemented in this next generation data prep editor. So they depend on us on also going GA in the winter release, which is looking good, and then also features like custom Facebook calendar.
Quick question. So S3 is the AWS S3 connector. You're saying that we can export our data set on say, on a schedule and store all the data that is there in S3?
Correct. Yeah. So if you look at the output node here, currently I'm writing to a dataset, and I have my application in the security settings. But then I have this drop down here that allows me to select an output connection that I've defined in Data Manager earlier. And in this case, I've defined an S3 connection.
Okay.
And there it is. I can basically select the table I want to write this data into.
Awesome. So basically a snapshot of your data till a particular period of time.
Correct. Yeah, well, I think we are overwriting the data right now.
But if we create different tables, then it will not overwrite, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so basically the first two are Snowflake and S3, but obviously, we're thinking about possibly doing Salesforce, even, writing back into a Salesforce object, for example. And then looking further into next year, so the next year's spring release and summer release is where we are going to tackle the similar treatment that is now there for recipes, also for data flows. So with the spring release, hopefully you will be able to open existing data flows in data prep. And it may or may not be a subset. It may be all of the data flows that are eligible to be upgraded, or it may be initially a subset of data flows, depending on how this upgrade work is going. But we're already working on data flow functional parity, and these are the things that we're currently developing for the winter release. Again, forward looking, we haven't completed the development cycle yet for the winter release, so it's hard to tell which specific items will be included. But we're working on partitioning functions, so replacing, providing an equivalent for compute relative, lookup multi-value. We're adding a predictions node for Einstein discovery stories inside the data flow. And obviously everything will have public APIs for uploading and downloading. Also, we're adding new features. So simple things like calculating the difference between dates is something we're currently working on. So you basically have the ability to calculate different time spans, whether that's days, months, hours, or years, seconds, quarters, etc. You can easily do this in the UI without having to write complex data transforms. You may have noticed, or if you're working in the beta, if you delete a node in between, you will find yourself actually having to delete all subsequent nodes. So there's some immaturity in the beta right now that we're fixing with the GA release of the winter release. So we can go ahead and reconnect these nodes and reconcile your schema, et cetera, automatically behind the scenes. So these are things that we're addressing with the winter release. And multi-selective nodes, copying them to the clipboard, moving them into different recipes, or just rearranging them visually and then actually remembering that location is all. So the memory location is already there, but the multi-select is coming in the future. To your Tableau question, Sayantani, was it you or Jen?
Jen.
So everything I've shown so far was committed roadmap. Now we're going into more demo territory. One exciting capability that we've been working on from our query engine side is SQL support. And that SQL support is work in progress. It's in demo mode right now, so we don't have a committed GA release to SQL support at this point. But what we've already done is a real demo of Tableau desktop querying an Einstein analytics dataset. So for this demo, we had to be a little bit careful of where we're clicking to make sure that we're issuing compatible SQL code that our query engine understands. But the key takeaway here is that Tableau is issuing SQL that is going through the Einstein Analytics query engine against an Einstein Analytics data set. So you can slice and dice your data in Tableau and move your dashboards, sitting on top of Einstein Analytics with the scale that Einstein Analytics provides. And currently we have data sets up to 2 billion rows of data. But in the future, we also have shown that we can expand that to 10 billion rows of data without compromising query performance, because we are able to distribute out our data sets and our query engine. So this is basically partitioned out. So as a single user, you get the full support of our massive data center at scale in parallel to return your queries. So I think that was a pretty impressive demo and kind of shows where we're heading with providing scalability to our Tableau users. On the connectors catalog, more, it's another area we're working with Tableau on providing more connectors in the future. Also, Terry has been working on enhancements for the dataset utils tool. So that is still our plucky CSV loader, that moves data up into our external data API. And then, we saw the real life demo of the output connector. This is how you set it up in your environment through a data manager. And then you just define your output location. Custom fiscal is also coming. So we have a beta for custom fiscal in the summer release. So you just turn this on for your org. And what this is doing is, if you have a custom fiscal calendar defined in your Salesforce org, we will just automatically apply that to all Einstein Analytics data sets that don't have custom fiscal offset defined. So you need to back out of your custom fiscal offset implementation if you want to benefit from this native support for custom fiscal calendar. So this is, again, beta in summer, and then hopefully GA in winter. Again, more of a visionary type of thing, and where we're heading with the data manager is not just a UI refresh, but also giving you kind of better overview over your data pipelines. And we have data flow concurrency. We're going to add recipe concurrency. We're going to add more triggers. So also in the summer release, we have event-based triggers for recipes. So as soon as data sync completes running, you can kick off your data prep recipe as a result. And this kind of visualizes all of these triggers in your data pipeline. So you understand roughly when is my data being extracted from Salesforce and when does it arrive in my dashboards. Have kind of a visual indicator of the approximate runtime of these things as well. So that's the SQL support that I mentioned earlier. It is currently projected to go beta in the winter release. And then increasing data set to 10 billion rows, as I mentioned. I've mentioned field level lineage. We're also working on field level lineage outside of data prep, but also in the EA platform. So this is a data set properties page, and you have this little widget here on the left-hand side where we allow you to see the impact of this specific field. So I've highlighted this field here. It's consumed by these dashboards, lenses, but also upstream, it was written by this data prep recipe, and it came from this specific connector. So I really understand, where's my data coming from.
This will be so useful for us, because at times, and I know Pete has complained about this before, we want to delete a field and we don't know where it is being used, and then our whole XMD goes for a toss.
Yeah.
So this is going to solve that problem of XMD going for a toss.
Yeah. Exactly. So I'm excited. This is kind of an extensible API that we can put all over the place, whether that's in the dashboard designer, highlight a field, you can query the lineage from dashboard, from while you're working on the dashboards or while you're editing your XMD, for example. Yeah, and because we're on this new next generation platform, we can simply bring in Einstein discovery stories. We can run sentiment detection on our data, and currently the preview isn't real time for this. That's the only transformation that doesn't have a real time preview of as you're doing it. But basically, lots of exciting capabilities with this new platform to run this sentiment on top of case comments, for example, to have kind of a customer health indicator, for example. And something that is also more of a demo right now that we're working on developing, thinking about, is the clustering and segmentation. For data prep use cases, for data cleansing, the anomaly detection, but also maybe for analysts. And the analyst use cases, we're still considering, how to make it work with permissions, et cetera, to data manager. But I can see huge value, across our customer base. And if you have any other ideas, let me know. I think this is an area where we're definitely open for your ideas and pain points as well. 40 minutes in, I think plenty of time for questions before Jen and I need to hop.
So Mark has a question which says, where are the learning resources documentation for the new prep UI?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So we're making some videos as we speak. So we're definitely making sure that we have a proper welcome mat for our users and change management for our users as we are rolling this out, especially in anticipation of the of the winter release, where everyone, all the recipe users, are getting this new experience. So the plan is to have kind of an on-screen walkthrough, but also produce videos that introduce you to the changes that are coming, and these are currently in progress. So we have release notes out. We have updated our documentation to include resources for the beta.
Well, when is the beta open?
With the summer release, immediately. So immediately with the summer release, there's unfortunately there's the one exception is the GR1 instance. This is a government cloud data center that does not have the beta available at all right now. But with that exception, every customer can opt into the beta, go into Salesforce settings as soon as the summer release is out. And you can check on trust.salesforce.com on when the maintenance release goes out for your specific instance.
So this isn't a beta that like we have to ask special permission or buy somebody a virtual bear. This is like an option.
Correct. It is. Yes, it's an open beta, so there's no PMs in the middle of this.
You're probably happy about that.
Exactly. I just removed myself from the equation here. What you do is, it seems, apologies, maybe it's either the org or my network speed that's a little slow. But you just go into Einstein Analytics settings and hit a checkbox. And then, as you've seen from the experience here, we clearly flag the beta recipes that are there. We continue to open and keep the schedules for your existing ones. So it's relatively safe to enable this. I'm not sure about your individual level of comfort on enabling this in a prod org or not, but even if you were, you're not going. It's designed to not interfere with any of the production systems, except for if you run this, obviously it counts again. It does count as a regular data flow run. So that's in analytics, and then analytics settings. And then as part of analytics settings, there's a checkbox for it.
And then once we all enable this in our sandboxes or wherever it shall live, are you wanting lots of feedback, or would that be Risha? Who would we send the feedback to?
Of course, yeah, great question. I'd love to hear the feedback from you firsthand.
We're going to be new drivers
and
on the road.
I know. Let me maybe also paste my email address in this chat. Here's the chat. So so feel free to reach out to me directly. If I can
Tim,
type.
there's another question.
And then, sorry, just real quick on feedback. We have this button here as well saying .feedback, and this will take you to a Salesforce survey. You can just basically provide anonymous feedback or
you got out the equation again. Love it. So it's right here. So when we encounter it while we're working with it, we can just, so we don't have to remember and do it at 5 o'clock when we're done with everything else.
No, thank you for
Or
that.
midnight.
You can keep sending, bombard Tim and Richa with all the questions that we cannot work with.
We'll use Pete's spam the button, right?
And we're definitely looking at that. My team pretty much asks me every week if we've gotten new feedback surveys. They're also very curious to learn of the reception, where we can fine tune. So this is exactly what it's for.
Awesome.
You know, so keep calm and spam the refresh button has been a running joke for all of us. In one of my videos, I'm terrible at video editing, but I managed to, it took me like over an hour to do this, but I have a little animation of spam cans flying at the refresh button in the data manager, and it's just kind of become a running gag. And I'm like, you know, it's cool. We're holding out for the new data prep engine. Nobody's making any changes to the old thing. We're going to get it eventually. And then, you know, I do a video with Bobby on Discovery, and sure enough, they've actually got an active loading bar. I want this thing.
Awesome.
Like, do you know how many
I know,
mice?
and
like I'm chewing up the lifespan on my mouse by just sitting there.
So Tim, what is your
and
recommendation?
I hear you, Pete.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to over talk.
Tim, there is a question for you.
I think this was kind of part of a little bit of this roadmap. You know, it's kind of hidden and buried in the flow orchestration type of slide, but we understand that, you know, overall data manager as a user experience, especially monitoring your flows, is outdated, and we need to tackle that. So we're hearing you. This is on our minds. We've actually had our engineers also come up with a cool filter mechanism and an ability to slice and dice monitor results. So hopefully we get to ship that code at some point.
So Tim, what would your recommendation be for the group here? Like when we do get access, should we start trying to move all of our stuff right away into this new UI? Should we get to know it first? How ready is it? Or is that more of like a winter goal, right? To start rebuilding what we have and take this release to learn it.
Yeah, I think I'll be honest with you. I think the editing and the designing experience can have some hiccups, especially because we don't have reconnecting nodes, for example. So if you happen to, and you may have noticed in the demo, sometimes the data preview also kind of failed on me, like in this case. And the validation here is we need to serve better error messages. So there are some areas where you will find some quirkiness during the development of the design flow. However, once you save this thing and it saves and it runs, you have the full maturity of a GA product. So you can go ahead and schedule your next generation data prep recipe on a time-based schedule, or on basically just new feature event-based schedules as well. You can go in and subscribe to notifications. You can even package up this recipe, so it's already packageable when change sets. So there's basically, on the operational side, we're pretty much sure, and also from a runtime perspective, the underlying platform is production hardened through the existing data prep recipe. So you're not the only weak area, I would say, right now is the actual designing and editing, where you sometimes may see some UI errors that aren't, that are generic, and you don't know how to actually fix them. So once you've gotten through the design, you're okay to it's production grade from there on.
Awesome. Tim, I have two questions actually. The first one is from Sarah. She wants to know the number of data flow runs per 24 hours. Will it increase?
Great question. Yeah, so currently that sits at 60. For the summer release, we don't have an increase in the books, unfortunately, but we are always re-evaluating that limit, because we know customers want to give broader access to Einstein Analytics and roll it out more broadly. We have made some manual exceptions for customers on that specific limit as well in the past. So there's a process, and the process is reach out to Salesforce support, create a case, and then our performance engineering team will take a look and possibly grant you an increase.
The other question I had was, in recipe, when you have a recipe right now, we don't see the nodes running like we see for data flows to figure out which node is taking more time and which is taking less time. In summer, will we be able to see that for the recipes or data prep 3?
Yeah, so I think that's an observation on the monitor page, right? That you, in a data flow view, you had the individual nodes. Correct. Because we are using a next generation platform that's distributed, and that basically creates an entirely new plan. So we have this beautiful graph that is a directed graph, but what this new platform does is it kind of optimizes it behind the scenes and scrunches it all up, and then possibly processes the data entirely differently. Maybe it decides to move a filter up, because if you only filter in the end, we're doing some behind the scenes optimization to move the filter all the way to the beginning. So because it's not a one-to-one mapping like it used to be with data flows, we're currently still coming up with ways to present that, to give you more details. And so the short answer is, for the summer release, it will still be very high level. It won't give you broken down details on what's happening behind the scenes, but we are thinking of ways to give you feedback on what's happening and where it's failing specifically, and improve our messaging there. But also the other good news is you don't need to watch it as closely, because we do automatic performance enhancements behind the scenes. So you don't have to necessarily worry about manually optimizing your performance.
No, not manual optimization, but just looking at, okay, my transformation node is taking 5 minutes instead of a minute, which it took yesterday, those kind of things.
Yeah, no, currently it's just the overall processing time.
Okay.
For it. But yeah, thanks for the feedback. I think it's a good enhancement request to track for us. And again, yeah, we've been thinking about ways to make that more transparent.
Tim, would you be open to doing another one of these with us after the release, when we've all played with it, and then have the real questions?
I know, I'd love to. I can see the I can relate to the situation where it's all great to see as a preview, but it would be a lot more valuable for me as well to hear what you're thinking and what your experiences were as we are wrapping up our GA release. It is obviously I'd love to hear your early feedback for me to give me a chance to possibly do some fine tuning on making sure we get the winter release right. You know, if you have some glaring deficiencies, you know, that you found in the summer release.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll probably find some hacks for it. I know Pete will.
Yeah. So we've got a question in the chat. Is there versioning for the new recipes like on dashboards, or is there a plan to introduce this feature at a later date?
There is a plan to introduce versioning. It's currently not in the new data prep editor, but you know, this may give up some nostalgic feelings here, even though you've probably just spent your day in this editor here. But you will find a new widget here. This is kind of the last hurrah for Dataflow Editor, where we've squeezed in version management for Dataflow. So I can go back to a prior version with this Dataflow version widget that we've shipped. And this is a little plugin that we're also planning to introduce into the data prep editor, as well as undo redo up here, as well as uploading and downloading the JSON that's behind this definition for an easy environment setting. So
where's this been on my Dataflow live?
So you can see there are some goodies, you know, for power users and for Dataflow users that we try to keep in mind. Also, when it comes to input nodes, actually a fairly important point I would say is I can see the full Salesforce object model. So I have my Salesforce and Salesforce local and Salesforce external connections here. And if I create or if I pick a new object, I can see all of the fields in Salesforce, not just the one that are added to data sync. So that's another throwback to Dataflow times, right, where this was possible, where we kind of try to get the best ideas from both products into this one.
Tim, we know you have less than 3 minutes for your next meeting, and you and Jen have to drop off. But a quick question. In the dashboard, we have something called Publisher, which I love, just because I can work on it and I can publish it to the community or make it live when I want and not keep saving it and hope that it doesn't break. But with data flows, as you showed that there is a new versioning tool, it looks only like the versioning part of it, not the publisher part where we can save the data flow, but not make it live so that it runs. Is there a possibility of that happening?
Mm-hmm.
So we are working on a live data flow, which runs, say, every hour.
Yeah.
We are making the change, but we don't want it to run yet because we are still working on it.
Yeah, I think that is a bit of a two-sided sword. I feel like, you know, I think we've had that with data prep recipes, and I think we didn't find the right design language maybe for it, because a lot of users were completely confused on what they're working on, right? So I always like the immediacy of, you know, I'm saving my data flow and it hits, you know, my schedule. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
But I fully agree. There is a need for better. There's a need for that. We are doing the copy and paste. So you could do like a manual. Let me create another recipe that I develop, and then I copy and paste my code over into my production, for example. So you could do it manually. You can find workarounds but I definitely, we thought about that when we have designs for creating that experience. It's just not committed to a specific release yet.
Okay.
So we're kind of working our way up, you know, in the hierarchy or in the maturity as well for this platform as well.
Well, thank you for this, Pete.
Yeah, I got
yes,
one more thing. So, you got to drop though, don't you? Well, I was just gonna say,
Jen,
so I'll
Jen,
keep
I
it,
think we need to drop. Yeah.
I'll keep it under 30 seconds. So
Yeah, real quick.
classic fashion, all my life I wanted a pony. You give me a pony, now I want a car. But is there any roadmap intent to have conditional behavior in it? So for example, I get these, warnings that pop up right now when an augment fails to join because my keys are bad. Maybe I'm expecting this to happen sometimes. Like I've got an external data set that didn't get loaded in because somebody didn't do their job and it's gonna break all my snapshots. What I want it to do instead is take this path. Is that a maybe in the future, conditional behavior?
Yeah, I mean, especially for joins, I think it opens up a whole big topic. Maybe Pete, that's probably a good conversation to have at our next check-in. Another thing I'm hoping to do is maybe integrating with Salesforce, with the overall Salesforce flows and lightning flows, and kind of having conditional logic on maybe on that orchestration level, right? So if you can run flow A, if based on the conditions, or you run flow B, depending on what you define in your Salesforce lightning flow. So
Yeah,
maybe we'll do it that way.
Any mechanism to automate under XYZ criteria, I want to run a data flow would be awesome. Like, excellent use case for this is I want my data flow to run as soon as my nightly integration has finished.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to pull Tim out though before
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
No fires.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks
It was a pleasure.
And
Thanks
I'm
everyone for
probably not
joining. Great questions.
conversation going.
Yeah.